So yeah, that's where the Mini should be sitting. Things didn't go quite to plan.
No, I'm not giving in. No, I'm not giving in. No, I'm not giving in.
Welcome back. We pick up right where we left off, with me about to discover a major problem. This is the look of a defeated man. Well, almost. The plan for this car was to take it on a trip, and the organiser of the trip needed details of the car around about the 1st of April. Now unfortunately it's only 4 days away, and you probably already realise I've got an awful lot of work to do. Unfortunately I've just run into a snag which may unfortunately have killed my chances of getting this car ready. I do have an idea for a fix which I'd love to execute right now, but it's about 10:30 on a Monday night, and I don't think my neighbours would particularly appreciate me cracking out the power tools to do so. Anyway, without further ado, I'll show you what the issue is, and you can all collectively groan with me. So as you can see there, my shock absorber is just hitting the strut tower, but if we look up there you can see it's not fully come across. Now this unfortunately is due to me slightly simplifying and squaring off the design of a Mini subframe. I can take the corner off that and create myself some clearance. I'm hoping I can do it in the car, but if not, that means everything I've done for the last 2 days with the help of my dad has got to be undone, and we have to take the entire engine, gearbox and drivetrain back out of this car. So what do you do when you are facing defeat square in the face? You carry on regardless and start setting up your completely untested clutch system, praying to God that you don't have to take the engine and gearbox back out.
Voices in my head, know me, call me, I will be restless, somehow they chose me, this is my nightlife, wanna be high life, I feel so reckless, calling them all night.
So I've just got the message from the convoy. They need my vehicle details for the ferry to book it. That's it. Mini's not going to Morocco. Time to prepare the backup car. I'm basically now going to pick up pretty much where I left off. Now you might think that should be fitting the shock absorbers, or at least correcting the issue that was causing me not to be able to fit them. However, having the engine in the car and a little bit more free time now has presented me with a few opportunities. This basically means I can test some of the systems which we never fully finished but while trying to get the car ready. One of them being the clutch system. So the first step in getting the clutch system ready is to fit these little gaskets that I missed out before from underneath the master cylinders. Now anyone who has ever removed or fitted the master cylinders into a Mini will know what a pig of a job it is to get the pin out that connects them to the pedals. Fortunately for me, I hadn't fitted the pin, so it was a relatively straightforward task to remove the master cylinders in order to fit the gaskets. With the master cylinders refitted, I could start fitting the clutch line. This started with me fitting the mounting brackets to the top part of the subframe. With the brackets fitted, the next thing was to fit the flexi line that goes to the master cylinder. The pipe fitting on one end is held in place to the bracket using a recycled brake pipe clip. With the flexi line fitted, I could then fit the hard line that goes between the two brackets. Before fitting the flexi line that goes between it and the clutch slave cylinder. And finally connect the flexi line to the clutch slave cylinder. All pipe fittings were tightened with spanners before proceeding to the next task of bleeding the clutch. We've got the clutch line all fitted. I connected the master cylinders to the pedals inside the car, and as you can probably see, I've got an easy bleed system set up. So now we're going to attempt to bleed it. I'm going to take this slowly and carefully one at a time, checking all the joints for any leaks, but fingers crossed that this works. For anyone that is not familiar with an easy bleed kit, it utilises air pressure off of a tyre to force the brake fluid through the system. This enables a clutch or brake system to be bled by one person. With the clutch bled, it was just a matter of testing to see if the clutch arm actually moves when I put my foot on the pedal. With the clutch system bled, we've been able to prove that there's no leaks in the pipe system and also that the slave cylinder does actually move. However, the true test for this system is to ensure that the clutch disengages properly, and the only way really to do that is to put the car back down its wheels and test it. So, that's exactly what we're going to do. The Mini's currently in gear, which means I really can't move it much. This means, in theory, if the clutch disengages properly, I should be able to keep rolling it. Clutch in. Clutch out. And clutch in again just to prove there's no funny business. Clutch works! Now I'll be honest with you, it's been a few months since I've worked on this car and I've got to that inevitable point where I've got to pull the front subframe in order to sort the issue with the shock absorbers. In order to pull the front subframe, I've got to take the fuel lines out, and to get them out, I've got to drop the rear subframe out. I really do need to address the design of these fuel lines. Well, it's not a job I wanted to have to do. Fortunately, as it hadn't been that long since the rear subframe was last off the car, and all the bolts had been covered in copper grease, it was relatively easy to remove. rear subframe removed, the next thing was to take out the steering rack. This needed to be removed so the fuel lines could come out. Yay! With the steering rack out of the way, we can now finally remove the fuel lines. Fuel lines out, we can now move on to the somewhat more normal part of removing the engine from a front wheel drive car, which is undo the suspension and take the drive shaft out. Well, it's a new day and it's currently hovering around about freezing. The only things that are left to do to get the subframe out are to take the clutch liner out, disconnect the engine mount bolt and the subframe bolts themselves. We're expecting a snow shower in the next couple of hours, so I'm going to crack on with this as fast as I can. What I wouldn't give to have a two-phase lift that would allow me to drop the entire subframe, engine and gearbox out as one unit.
the subframe out of the Mini, it now needs to go back in the jig so that we can make the modification to the corners here in order to clear the shock absorbers.
The reason for putting the subframe back in the jig is to prevent any distortion from welding. The fact that I can keep putting it back into the jig shows that this is working.
With the subframe back in a jig, we can now make the modifications needed to it in order to clear the shock absorbers. Now, before I took this off the Mini, I did make some pencil marks and took some measurements of where the shock absorbers were clashing with this corner here. I took those measurements and transferred them back over to the CAD model, which allowed me to make this little cardboard template. What this does is wraps around the corner here and shows me where all my lines need to be in order to cut. The advantage of using this little cardboard template is I can fold it inside out and mark the other side to make sure both cuts on each side are identical.
With the template made, I did exactly what I said and marked the cut lines on both sides of the subframe before attacking it with an angle grinder and a hacksaw. With the corners of the subframe hacked off, I linged back the edges and removed the paint from around the edges where I was going to weld. With the two whopping great holes in the subframe, the next job was to make up some plates to cover them up. With the parts cut out, I'll wire weld the back sides to remove any surface rust at the scale before giving them a coat of weld-through primer. It was much easier to paint the back sides now rather than trying to do it once the parts were welded onto the subframe. Don't forget the all-important last spray. With the paint dried, I could then tack them into place. Yes, I know I'm not wearing a welding gauntlet on my left hand. I was struggling to hold the part in place accurately with it on, so this became a race between me getting the part tacked in place and burning myself because the metal became too hot. With the pieces tacked in place, I beveled the necessary edges ready so that they could be fully welded into place. With the subframe modified, it was just a case of refitting the subframe to the Mini and checking the clearance between the subframe towers and the shock absorbers.
Well, the shock absorber does clear, albeit it's very close, and if I'm going to be honest, it's a little too close for comfort. Annoying as it is, I think I'm going to have to take the subframe back out and have a second go at this. The first thing I'm going to do though is go check my CAD model to make sure I did it correctly. Well, there you go.
proof that we don't always get things right on the first attempt here at the Project Peddlers, or in this case even the second one.
But the shock absorber is now clear the subframe. And before you ask, yes, I have checked the other side as well. Anyway, with that sorted, we can now move on to the next job, which is sorting out the fuel lines.
Come back next time when hopefully we complete the fuel system and get the Mini one step closer to being back on the road. If you've enjoyed this episode, then please hit that like button and share. Sharing the video really does help the channel out a lot. If you want to stay up to date with the build, then please subscribe to my channel. And finally, you can follow my build thread on the mini forum, where sometimes I post some sneak previews and additional behind the scenes photos, the link to which is in the description below. Once again, thanks for watching.